do a count in thing, but those are probably too long anyway. So instead of waiting for that, we'll just get right to it. So the reason we're here today is it's May Day 2023, and I thought it was important to start talking about some, more like less current politics and more long-term issues and goals. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is why do we work? And you have any thoughts on that, Kit?
About why we work?
Yeah.
Well,
I can start if you want.
Well, sure. I guess I could let you start. You did ask me if I had any. You did ask me.
Sorry, we're off to a great start here. No, I just I realized right after I asked you, like maybe you didn't have a good idea what I was trying to ask, or it might be hard for you to answer. But go
No,
ahead.
I didn't quite have a good idea about like where you were going with that. Like there's some clear ideas about why we work. But stuff needs to get done. But I suppose that part of that is also embedded in that the concepts of economy and the fact that there are people in power that control it is the other part of that. Like ideally, people do work because things need to be done, but the concepts of economies and people in power corrupt that, I think, is the other side of the coin.
Yeah, well, the way I see it, the underlying reason for work, from the beginning has been that we needed to survive.
Yes. Well, that's why I was just saying, well, we have things that we'd like to do, like in order to complete the basics. Like I'd like to have shelter. Therefore, I will work to build infrastructure with the community.
For most of human history, there were communities, I guess, but nothing like what we have today.
Oh, no.
People were mostly taking care of themselves. They might help each other build a structure to live in or things like that, share food. But, no one was working for someone else,
Right.
They were meeting their own basic needs and the needs of their community, and that was basically it. I think as things have progressed, I don't know if progressed is the word I'd like to use there, but we turn to systems where people's labor didn't just go to taking care of them or the people they cared about, or even taking care of their community. It went to specific people who, in the past were largely kings and lords, and eventually in the last few hundred years, it shifted more towards merchants. But this whole system, it's been built around taking your time for the things that you didn't have to do, and getting you to do something which creates some type of benefit for the people you're working for. Wow, I got a weird spot of light right in my eye there.
Yes, I can see it on your face.
That's the great thing about sunlight and changing, times. But anyway, so things have progressed a lot, and today we don't really work for the reasons that we did in the past as much. Like um, the majority of the work we do, I think, is not directly connected to our survival. Um, yes, there is a significant part of it that is, um, you know, paying for things that we want that we don't have to have, but uh, a lot of those things we want because they're advertised to us rather than because they are things that we actually need or would have sought out if someone wasn't creating them to sell it to us. You know what I mean?
Yes,
Um,
consumerism.
yeah.
Yes.
So I guess that kind of brings us to the next point I wanted to talk about, which is how much do we have to work? Um, I don't have all of the numbers to back it up, but I do know that it's only a very small percentage of people who actually works in like agriculture or even construction and you know resource extraction and management, things like that. It's most of us don't do that kind of work. Um, you know, I don't want to go back to just like a farming society where we have nothing else, but that doesn't mean that everything we produce today is worth producing or that we need to continue doing all of it into the future. Um, we can decide what's actually important to us, what really improves our lives, and you know, I think we can start to let some things go. What do you think?
Um, there is a certain amount of work that we're doing right now that is definitely not related to our survival. And a great deal of that is related to just the production of currency,
Mhm.
that we do to uh, um, related to economies and to our consumer economies, for example, to chase after the marketing that's delivered to us. There, of course, are large amounts of our community who are working for their survival, uh, though. Like we have a massive lower class um, who are whose work drive those whose labor drives those consumer economies though.
But a large portion of those people aren't working on things that help them survive. They are working on things that help someone else,
Yes.
gain more money,
Yep.
and that's what our society forces them to
Yep.
do to, be allowed to survive.
That's a very good point, actually. Yeah, and that I could see is extremely problematic because it is kind of, I guess it's a self-licking ice cream cone. It is it's a feedback system that is that's creating its own problem in that effect. Uh, um, people are jobs are being created, or excessive labor is being created for people to create the products that are then marketed to people who then work to spend money on these products who then create jobs to market them to the people who then spend that money to buy those products, and then it cycles back again, and
Yeah,
waste is produced from those products.
I, yeah, I think there is value in creating materials that help people to understand why they might benefit from a product or something, but that's not really what it's about in general. Marketing is about how can we convince you that you need this, even if you don't?
Yeah, well, yes, a lot of marketing a great deal of marketing is about creating the desire for a thing when you might um, when you have no interest in it in the first place. Often when you would never want it, when there would be nothing there and nothing there ever. Although there is a certain amount of marketing for just creating discovery for things that um, you know, uh, otherwise would have been useful for you. But a large amount of it is in fact described the way that you did, creating desire for things that you never would have wanted in the first place or ever needed.
Yeah, and even if you did want it and potentially need it, um, you know, the marketing is not geared toward, most marketing is not geared toward helping you find the things that are going to be the most beneficial to you. They're geared toward making you believe that whatever they're selling is what you need. Um,
And
so
and to wrap back to the original question, like how does this fit into why do we work in order to prop up these systems?
yeah.
Although this is just one slice of like the larger segment, and I think that other than critique, I think we're avoiding one of like the primary words of like the consumeristic, the concept of capital, the production of materials, and the necessity to consume items and consumer economies. Um,
Well, that kind of brings us to the next thing I wanted to talk about, which is who benefits from our work. And to some degree, that is usually us. Um, but we are not necessarily the reason for it, or even the primary beneficiaries in a lot of cases. Uh, you know, it is capitalists, people who have money to put into things. They invest in something and they expect other people to do the work to they call it their money doing work, but the reality is that for one reason or another they have managed to amass enough money um, to put it into a project, and rather than doing the work on that themselves or being part of the group doing it, an equal part of the group, they believe that this wealth that they have for in many cases because they inherited it or they borrowed it, um, you know because they are bringing this to the table, they think that they should get to control everything and have the bulk of the benefits go to them, where everyone else is seen as you know replaceable, and just not very important. um, So, I would really like to see us move back toward a system where, the people who benefit from work are primarily the people who are doing that work. Um, I do think, though, that the idea that the only way you should be allowed to live in this world is by doing work is wrong. That the history of not just humanity but life on this planet has been, a struggle, but it has been uh, a free place for anyone to live. But now in the systems that we've set up, we have people who believe that they own everything and every place, and if you want to be in a place, if you want to get food from a place, you have to pay someone who owns it, uh, or you're morally wrong for just existing, on the only planet you can exist on. And I think that's a really messed up way of looking at the world, and I think we really need to move away from that. Um, this is one of the more radical ideas that I've only started to talk about a little, but I think it's important to consider the possibility of dividing resources globally, um, and including every human on the planet in the way we do that, but not just humans. We need to, consider other life too, and not just give everyone their allotment of land and say burn it down and build something here, or even grow food here or whatever. We can't do that with all of the land. We
Right.
need to
Yeah, because most of the earth is
find a
not arable,
balance.
so to speak. Yeah.
I mean, not just that, but even if we could, it would leave us with a destroyed world that I don't think would want to live in. It's the biological diversity of Earth, and you know that really makes it worth being here, I think. um, and I don't really think we could even survive, at least at our current technological level, if we tried to, you know, um, destroy nature that much. Um, but I think we could, um, kind of assign people a set amount of land that either they could use to live on, to farm, whatever, or reassign to someone else who wants to do the farming if they want to do different things, like uh, we need to decide on some reasonable amounts of materials that we extract. And, again, if we divide those up, uh, for example, we could have companies have to, put up uh, kind of a collective pool of these resources that they were going to use. And once those were passed on to the people who needed them, those resources would, not be assigned to the company anymore. If you see what I mean, um, like we could set up a system where we could balance things out and make sure that companies weren't just using enormous resources for no reason, throwing them away, you know, um, really misusing and abusing the power that they have, which I think a lot of companies are today. Um, and help to make sure that the people who need things can actually get them, but that we're not over consuming. Um, I don't know. I mean, these are complicated issues, and I've talked very little about them to anyone, but it's the kind of thing that I think we need to consider. I mean, I would also say that anyone who didn't want to be involved in that kind of a system should probably be allowed, similar freedom to do what they want. within reason.
Mm.
Not that they should just be able to say, hey, this is my mountain now, and I'm going to, buy some equipment to come and break it down into little pieces to get the coal out or whatever. um, but if someone wants to have their own farm and they don't want to participate in society and whatever, like, you know, I don't think we should force people. Um, but I think we could come up with an equitable system that that worked for everyone pretty much, and didn't steer all of the resources into one place.
So you're saying that right now, too many resources and a lot of the designation of labor is being consolidated too much by the way that corporations operate.
And yeah, that's a big part of it. It also involves our economic system, our governments.
Yes, nations, and etc.
Yeah, the very idea of property rights as we know them,
Yeah,
like,
because earlier
yeah,
you did mention landlords and the concept of that, like living, the entire idea that you live somewhere beholdens you, like almost in a serfdom sort of way.
yeah. I mean, where can you live that you don't have to pay someone?
Yep, that's true.
I mean, the things that we don't designate as private property, we designate as government property, and then we say, oh, but you can't live there. So, we really force people into participating in the system, whether they want to or not. And I don't really think that the systems that we have right now are working well for most people. I think that they work better than a lot of things we've tried in the past, as far as just creating, kind of human, maybe not happiness, but um, an ability to survive and feel like you're at least kind of okay. But I think that if we shifted things around, we could get to a place where people are actually much happier than they are now, and where we're not putting as much of a burden on the world that you know gives us everything that we have. um, I do talk a lot about resources and the waste and overuse and stuff, but I mean it's an important issue, and it's something that our society has pushed very much toward a consuming is good idea, and capitalism brings us potentially things that we want, but its incentive is not to give us something great that will work for as long as we need it. The incentive is to make money. So the best way to do that is to make cheap shoddy products that work well enough right now, but you have to rebuy them in a year or 3 years or whatever the life cycle is, um, sometimes every day. And we have a lot of things that could potentially be used for centuries. Things made of glass that we use once for shipping a product out, and we store it for a little while. We use it, and then we just throw it away.
Yep.
And even resources like glass are not indefinitely renewable. Like we can run out of the materials that we use to make them if we continue to treat them as if they are inexhaustible. Sorry, getting off on a bit of a tangent there. Do you want to say anything, or should I kind of move on to the next point?
I think I don't really have much to add to that. So
Okay, I'm gonna do a little Marco Rubio here. I needed a water bottle instead of a glass, but anyway. So the next thing I wanted to talk about are our jobs necessary? And we've already kind of talked about this, but we have such large portions of our labor force that are devoted to things like marketing, like financial issues, anything to do with banking and stocks and investing. And, yes, we do have to have some people deciding where resources go, or helping us decide where, and making those things happen. But the majority of that stuff is just about shoveling money around, and changing numbers in a chart that ultimately mean very little. I mean, if you look at how much money there is in stocks and investments and things in the world, like how over leveraged the banking industry is and stuff. They have like many trillions of dollars of bets on things that could easily come crashing down. But and in the system we have right now, it would appear to be a disaster. But the reality is that these things don't really matter. They're about numbers in a spreadsheet, and making sure that certain people who have way too high of a number in those spreadsheets can continue to control this whole system. You know, financially, politically, through donations. They control labor by employing people for a portion of what they take in, and the labor that they require people to do is not necessarily related to anything that needs to be done. I could create a YouTube channel tomorrow where I stand around with an apple on my head, and that's all I do. I don't provide any actual value to anyone. But if someone wants to pay me, millions of dollars a year to do that because they think that it serves their agenda, whatever, then we treat that as if it's actually valuable. Just the entire way that we look at money and resources, and how they should be dealt with is I think just way off base. I think one of the best examples I have, like, which is not that related to this, but I've thought about what if a poor country is going to get like $1 billion worth of food that they need to keep people from starving, but someone else decides to buy it for $2 billion, whatever, because he feels like he'd like to watch it rot on the beach or burn it. You know, uh, we we don't. I think that if we actually saw someone doing that openly, that there would be real backlash against it. But the way we treat things in general is that you know that's that person's money. They can do what they want, and I think that's a really messed up way of looking at things, especially on that type of a scale. I don't know. Any thoughts?
Well, I mean, your last example, that would be certainly considered an outrage. Although, if someone chose to do that, but I suppose, I mean, like your consideration about certain jobs, are you with the whole putting an apple on your head? Are you referring to like people who have come up with like social? Are you referring to like social media influencers or
I'm not trying to refer to anyone in particular. I'm just trying to say that, the value that we assign to things is not in any way related to
uh,
the value it creates.
okay.
And another thing is like if someone who's never worked a day in their life, never done anything for anyone, uh, suddenly wins the lottery.
Oh
They
yes, of
have they
course.
have hundreds of millions of dollars. People would then treat them as if they were, these great people who had done
Yes.
so much.
Y-
All they did was buy a lottery ticket. you
y-
know
yes.
um,
And that's because our culture has a fascination with money, with wealth.
it's not just a fascination, it's how we measure everything and everyone. And I think that's seriously messed up.
Yeah, that is well, and that's a different use of the concept of value. It is a skewed value system that at least the Western culture has, in that labor is connected to the production of value, and therefore, if you have a lot of money, you clearly have done a lot of labor. However, as you've pointed out, there are ways of getting a whole lot of money without doing a lot of labor, and people have a strong tendency to forget that this is a very true that this is very true. There are numerous ways to end up with a great deal of money without doing any whatsoever. Uh,
And yeah, I mean, a lot of people who have a lot of money,
have done
even
nothing.
yeah, even if they have done something, they've often got the money to do those things from their parents or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, I mean, like
Um,
from previous eras, we have like more appropriate terms for individuals who did things like this, like the robber barons and other terms for people who have done terrible things to gain access to great amounts of wealth, and then done terrific things to damage society, or etc. Is just that people want great amounts of wealth because they feel like it will alleviate them from the stress that they currently have, having very little of it at the time, because they want relief from the work that they're currently doing in order to amass it. Um, and so right now, people are doing labor in order to get the items that they want to consume. Uh, uh, for one, to pay the rent on their houses, to have their cars, and in order to get the items that are marketed to them. And so, of course, they look at the people who have like have that prosperity, and they see that as, well, virtuous. Um,
Yeah, I don't think it's just that. I think that it's something that our society drills into us from the time where we're, infants, like that,
well, it's
you
in
know,
the media. I mean,
yeah,
well, by the media, I'm not referring to just like news media. I'm referring to our fiction. Uh,
yeah.
uh, aha, you have a. Oh, never mind. The bot. Oh, it's a crypto bot.
Oh, lovely.
It's. Never mind. Um, but yeah, I'm trying to. I wanted to kind of bring it back a little bit to the our jobs necessary topic.
Hmm.
Um, to a certain extent. Like I mean, like there's definitely a number of jobs that are certainly necessary. In the vein of like which jobs are like produce uh uh on the level of practicality.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely need, production of food, shelter. Um, I don't really want to give up, electronics and lights and, a lot of different things that we, have come to, you know, rely on a lot. But if I really look around, I feel like most of the things I see I could do without. Um, the poorer people are, the less of that there is, I think. But for people in a fairly wealthy country who are not, at least currently, not at the lower end of the spectrum, I think that we often end up with more things than we need, and things that you know probably never needed to be created in the first place, but were made because someone thought they could make money off of them. um, but that, additionally, we have jobs like, truck drivers and taxi drivers,
Interest.
and you know um, there are a lot of people. I mean, even not artists, but not like artists in general, but like people making art for marketing purposes or things like that. I think that, I'd rather see those people creating their own art, and let AI take over some of those less meaningful jobs. um, I think that we, well, kind of moving on to the next topic.
Okay.
Do you have anything else to say about this? Or?
No, although I kind of had a strange comment about like how currently AI is not really that great at the art production quite yet, but it is definitely working its way up there rather efficiently.
Yeah, I saw one yesterday. It was like Deep Floyd or something that was actually really good at text.
Oh my
Um,
God. Yeah, yes. I mean, like, yeah, I mean, like the one of the problems that we currently have with like AI image text production is that they have a really bad type spelling stuff. They are disastrously bad.
yeah,
But Deep Floyd is actually a lot better. Like maybe like 60-70% of the time gets it right.
yeah.
Uh,
Like, I mean, these obviously aren't ready to take over
no,
jobs right
no,
now
but I mean, like
at
you
the
give
top.
these, yeah, you give this a few years, and it's probably going to be, knocking it out of the park. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of these things will be tools that people can use rather than, a complete replacement for them. I've seen a
Oh yeah,
lot of things in video production that I thought were pretty interesting, music
yep.
and, various things. But for things that a lot of people are doing today, where they're just slogging through day after day doing these things that they really don't want to be doing, if we can replace those things with, um, you know, AI or robots or whatever, kind of automation or other things we come up with, um, you know, that can free up a lot of people.
Yeah, oh, and that is the ideal with automation is giving you a tool that makes your life easier so that you can get back to being creative rather than tediously doing something over and over and over again that you don't want to be doing.
Yeah. Um, I guess we can move on to how can we change.
Okay.
Um, so I will give a few examples of things that I think we could do. First thing would be to immediately reduce work hours and days. Um, I think that a lot of studies are showing that maybe not for every job. I mean, a doctor probably, needs to put in extra hours compared to other people just because they have a very, you know, hands-on, you have to be there, to deal with people kind of job. But, I think and ultimately I would like them to have reduced hours too, but we need more people doing the jobs for that to happen. Um, but for most people, I think, moving down to a 4-day work week right now would, you know, be totally fine, and they could still get the things they need to do done in that time and have, an entire extra day every week. Um, that's not near where I want it to get to, but I think it's a reasonable place to start right now. Um, shoot, there's another thing I was going to say about that. Any thoughts?
I would totally take a 4-day work week. Um, there are a lot of different jobs and things that we could do that would probably benefit from having numerous different things that if we could automate away uh, things that people currently do so that we could shift them into other work uh, so that people could work less in other places would be nice so that we could have more people working other jobs so that people could work less there
Yeah,
would be brilliant. uh, because one of the things is that in any given market, you still do need enough coverage, uh, you know, for labor and stuff like that, because um, in service industries, especially, do need people working, at counters and stuff like that. But you can certainly have a lot of automation there. Like, one of the wonderful things about like even the banking industry was the introduction of ATMs, or and mobile banking and stuff like that, which helped greatly reduce the number of people that you needed, like in the bank. But you still need people in the bank to actually sit down and talk to people. But you don't need like you don't need everybody there all the time. It's the same thing, like, for the supermarket. You could certainly you could have more people working there, but for less hours at the same time, but for like more coverage. But you don't. But we still see corporations like Walmart and etc. forcing people to work extra long hours and still and reducing the number of people and extending the hours that they work instead to cover the the number of people there, or the opposite direction by cutting the number of hours that they're working in order to game systems and hiding the fact that they're doing that, because I've seen the opposite happen.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. There's unfortunately a lot of cutting of hours. I think it's generally because they want to avoid paying benefits, and usually they will not pay benefits to people who are not working full time,
Yep.
and so if they give you 35 hours instead of 40 and say, oh, that's not full time, I guess you got to get another full time job to get benefits, whatever.
Yeah. Well, of course, in order to deal with that, we would have to change the structure of the way that benefits work in this country.
Yeah.
So in order to speak to that, there would have to be a modification. But the thing is that all of these things, speaking to service industry workers and etc., people do need to still go get groceries, still need to do banking and stuff like that, and these do need to be open. But these workers still need to have a living wage while working less hours, and they still need benefits. Mm-hmm. So if it would be nice to have them to have reduced hours, but we do need the structures in our culture needs to move with it to cause our governance in place to give them the living wage and the benefits to be able to work less hours, is probably what I was getting at by pointing out that these companies have in fact tried to pull a quick one, by getting into the latter part, which is just equally absurd, because corporations are not out to benefit the people that work for them. They're out to benefit themselves, to lower their costs, often at the detriment of their workers, which is not beneficial to the community at large in the first place. And that comes from the previous question that you had, who benefits?
Yeah.
And I think that also shifts to the question, how can you change? Because one of the changes is seeking out a shift in the culture and the governance in order to probably enforce, because you'd have to put more pressure on the way that work culture works here, because I think Nordic countries have in fact kind of pushed a lot more to the concept of greater amounts of less work over more money.
Yeah. I think another part of what we need to do is to disconnect our self-worth from jobs. It tends to be the first thing people ask, what do you do? And by that, they don't mean what are you interested in or what do you do for fun? It's what, how do you serve capital? And people tend to look at it as a moral failing if you're not working as much as you possibly can,
Right.
And, where I don't believe that someone should have to work, at all, or especially beyond what it takes to meet their basic needs to, to just be looked at as a normal person, I don't know. It's hard to even talk about because our minds are so wrapped around the way that we have have viewed this, at least in the U.S. for longer than we've been alive.
Yes.
Um, but I think that we can eliminate a lot of the unnecessary jobs that we were talking about. It doesn't mean that the people are unnecessary. It just means that you know they don't have to do the jobs that can be done by automation.
Mhm.
It doesn't make them worth less as people, and I think we need to stop looking at it as if it did. Um, it, I've been very confused for probably my whole life about why people don't treat jobs that are lost to automation as a win, because it is a win. The only way that it appears not to be is that we structure things in a way that we take away people's ability to meet their needs, if we take away their jobs.
Well,
Um, yeah, go ahead.
well, largely the reason that it's not treated as a win is because we don't have a our culture and our governance systems do not have a very good social system when it comes to the way that we treat people's jobs. When we remove those jobs, we don't. We when we remove people's livelihoods, that's the way we refer to it. We
Yeah, I
we
mean that's why I
literally do
was
that.
yeah, that's what I was saying. Like we take away their ability to survive in our society
Yeah.
if we take away their job, and it shouldn't be that way.
No.
It should be
Especially
a win-win-win.
yes, yes. I mean, especially because we have ever since the Industrial Revolution, we should have looked at the advancement of technology in our culture and noted that every decade we are changing the way that people work, and the fact that every time that we change the way that people work, we are going to disrupt entire sectors.
Yeah,
And we already know this. And yes, there are retraining programs, and that there are outlays of people who are going to be out of work, and that there's unemployment. But there is very, very poor. Um, the, there's just not a good cultural outlay to it. Um, uh, at all. Instead, we have like this very, very strong tendency, as you said, to tie people's value to their work, uh, and their ability to work. And uh, so people who have been uh, displaced by the advancing technologies are left behind instead by advanced technologies, which instead should be the tide that's raising all the boats.
yeah,
Um, and because many of these people who have been set aside by these advancing technologies are often people who have tremendous amounts of knowledge, uh, or cultural knowledge that is very important to us, but we forget them. And I'm saying that as an anthropologist. It's very important to me. These people, uh, stay with us. Like they're from communities. Often the people that we leave behind are from minority communities, and their mistreatment is catastrophic.
yeah. I mean, they come from all communities, though. Especially lower income communities are often the people who get most easily automated out of jobs,
Mm.
and that that cuts a wide swath through all types of people.
Mm.
Um, Sorry, was there anything else you wanted to say about that particular?
Nope. No.
Um, all right, then I'll move on to another thing that we can do to, change how we work in the future, which is reduce unnecessary production and consumption. Um, we whether it's extracting and creating materials that we don't need to for packaging that's just thrown away, or for items that we don't really want or need that much, that there's a lot of stuff we could cut back on there. um, Fast fashion is terrible. um,
Haute
I
couture.
yeah, like I understand to some degree from the people who are buying it that they enjoy it, but I don't think they would enjoy it much less if we didn't treat things that were made last year as if they were garbage. you know um, if it was good fashion last year, it doesn't have to be bad this year. um, I think we should try to adjust how we look at things, so that you know the things we produce, whether it's clothes or furniture or cars, or whatever we have, that we always want, like you know the hot new thing, whatever. Um, I guess I personally have more of an understanding of that with technology, and I always enjoy being on the bleeding edge if I can, but um, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't continue to use the older things for as long as we can. And I've definitely kept a lot of older technology, in part because I just, it still works well, and I don't want to waste the resources to replace it with something new. Um, but we have kind of a throwaway culture now that um, is built around trying to convince people that they shouldn't bother with cleaning things or taking care of them or expect them to last very long. They should just buy things cheap and throw them away, and then
Mm.
buy them again. You know, um, there are a lot of things that even if they're perfectly good, still, just for convenience, people say throw them away, like you know plastic plates and utensils and stuff. Like, how many people reuse those things? But they could definitely be reused plenty of times. um, we just don't look at it as even a possibility. Is like, well, the whole reason I bought these plastic plates was so I could use them once and throw them away and not have to clean anything.
Mm.
I I mean, I get it from a convenience standpoint, but um, it's a very poor use of resources, and our move in that direction is produced an enormous amount of waste, especially plastic, but all kinds of waste. And I think that's something that we really need to look at.
Yeah, waste reduction would be like pretty essential, uh, because I think I mentioned it before. Like, waste, production in general is pretty spectacular from like the view of of consumerism in general, especially because like consumption in general is all about obsolescence. At least our particular type of consumerism, the next best thing, and having so many friends that work in retail um, is one of the things that constantly brings that to mind for me, especially, you know, having numerous friends that worked in secondary retail, watching everything flow through the different ecosystems, like from primary to secondary to secondhand, etc. It's a constant.
To the burn pit.
Yes. Yeah.
Sadly, there are too many things that either they don't get sold in the first place or they get returned, and then instead of, you know, bothering to get them into the hands of someone who wants them and could use them, you know, they would rather, you know, destroy them, take a tax write-off, whatever, and you know, treat it as if it never existed, but all of the work and materials still went into it, you know.
Yeah, well, learning that chances are that thing that you bought from Amazon that you're now returning will be returned so that it's shredded.
Yeah.
That is a weird feeling that you're sticking it in the mail to FedEx back, which will be stuck on a truck that drove to your residence to pick up at like an expensive gas cost so that it will be destroyed. That's just
Well,
how
because
much.
they can't trust you to destroy it yourself, and they couldn't have you use something that you didn't, you know, fully pay for or whatever, you know.
How much additional. That's not just additional waste, like on the product itself. That's all of the gas that it took to come to my residence to pick it up and take it back just to destroy it.
Yeah.
That's just that. I
It's
mean, like,
waste on waste on waste on waste.
I, I, I am having trouble describing the levels of absurdity that exist in this value chain. Even to describe it as a value chain, it's like an anti-value chain.
Yeah.
So
But, you know, they would say that, you know,
it's a disincentive.
yeah. I mean, they would say that it's a disincentive for you to, you know, well, sorry, never mind.
Yeah, I mean, like, I guess I can see where they're coming from,
I,
but
I mean, they have some points, I guess, in that, like, if they just have everyone keep everything that they would have returned, then people will, you
it,
know, return things
it would be
that
an
are
increase in
perfectly
fraud.
fine and they, you know, want, but they, you know, um,
Yeah, yeah,
that's part of just like the whole perverse structure of, you know, capitalism and um, you know, how we distribute things.
yes, yeah, they're concerned about an increase in fraud, is my suspicion. So,
Yeah.
and they don't want to do as is sales is their.
But, you know, I just don't find this an acceptable way of dealing with that issue.
No.
So another way that we can change work, which, you know, we've tried to do, and I think this should have a lot more time devoted to it, but I think we're only going to cover it briefly right now. Is, you know, organized labor. I think giving control, benefits, and real responsibilities to the people doing the actual work, rather than trying to have a top-down, you know, control where, you know, the investors and CEO and whoever control everything about the company and the products and the workers and how they do their jobs and everything. and then take all the money. I mean, not literally all, but the bulk of the money goes back up to them. Um, I think that control and those benefits and responsibilities should be on other workers. I do think that it makes sense to elect people to run things to some degree. They shouldn't be unaccountable overlords, but you don't want to have everyone come together to vote on every minor little decision, uh, but actually having overall control of um, the places they work and the things that they do. I think would really benefit people uh, and help to move us in a more beneficial direction for workers and for the world.
Yeah, I'm definitely a proponent of organized labor, uh, and uh, collective bargaining, from the source of the people doing the work, uh, primarily because you think that they're the ones that are who know what they need, uh, and not only that, uh, especially given the current, the way that work works, but also the idea of maybe having a totally different way of working where the workers are the ones who are the people that do, are the owners themselves,
Yeah,
collective work instead. Like, I can't remember what they're called.
co-op.
Cooperatives?
Yeah,
Yes. Would probably even be better than having corporations.
yeah. I mean, I don't feel like we have got much benefit from corporations. I
Yeah.
think we have had a lot of downside and very little upside from large corporations uh, and extended, um, you know, like indefinitely run corporations. I don't know the history of them that well, but as I understand it, they were initially created for a limited time and purpose, and then they would go away.
Hmm.
Whereas today, they're created for, they want it to be forever, and they want to own and control everything that they possibly can and suck up every dollar they can. So it's a very different system, and it's one that is very beneficial for a few people, but for society in general and for the workers doing most of the work, I I don't feel like it's a positive thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, like in this case, like for collective governance, and therefore some sort of they could come up with their own mechanism for figuring out how to operate their, I don't know, interests without, you know, with less worries, with less, I don't know, with whatever structure that they choose to come up with, that regards their labor more, uh, you know, uh, their labor interests more equitably than the way
Right.
that a um, the more less tyrannically, which is the way that corporate interests do, which are more about like limiting the liability for a small interest on top of labor does.
And the goal for those large corporations is just to make you work as many hours as you possibly can, and produce as much as you can for them, unless it costs them more, in which case they might have you work less hours and have other people do it, you know.
Yep.
But
Yeah. Which
but
is
it's all about just maximizing their profits, and there's no real thought about what's good for you in, you know, in most people's cases.
yes. Yeah. Maximize their
Whereas
profits.
if you were in control of your own workplace, you and your coworkers, I think you would find a much better, you know, balance between trying to make the most money or whatever, or to um, have time for yourselves, or you know, decide what you produce, how you produce it. All of these decisions would be affected by having different goals. Um, so, you want to move on, or you
but
got anything?
sure. No, I don't have anything to add. That was
Okay.
pretty much it.
Yeah, I'm kind of losing my train of thought a little, and maybe running out of steam a bit.
Sorry.
It's all right. It's just, you know, hard talking for an hour plus, and you know, I mean, you've done some of the talking too, yeah, but you know, it's still, you know, hard to do for too long without any break. So the last thing I wanted to talk about was the idea of winding down work. Um, I thought it was kind of a, you know, maybe catchy phrase, wind down work, and it, you know, pretty succinctly, you know, says what I think we need to do. Um, you know, like I said, I think we should be moving down to like a 4-day work week right now. But that's not the ultimate goal to me. I think that we should be looking to automate whatever we can to, you know, reduce the things that we produce that we don't need to produce, the jobs that people do where they're just shuffling money around or trying to get people to buy things that they don't need. You know, there. I, I don't know the exact percentage of jobs, but there are a lot that we could eliminate in the near future, and the farther out you look, the less you know, work there has to be. Um, so I think that our ultimate goal should be to wind it down, rather than to, you know, maintain full employment uh, perpetually, and make people, you know, produce as much as they can forever. Like there's not necessarily a benefit to doing that, you know. So I'd like to see us start moving in the opposite direction. What do you think?
Um, Eliminating things that we don't need to do and automating away as much as possible. Well, I mean, that's been kind of like the direction that a lot of like previous um, work innovations have tended to go. Like from like, you know, although at the same time, every time that we've gone through a revolution, we've also produced more work. So I
Yeah,
think that's not always the case.
I mean, the common refrain for the last few decades has been learn to code. You know, you lost your coal mining job,
Oh
become a
my God,
programmer.
that's.
Like, I don't know.
I mean,
In
I
some
guess you
cases that would work, but
you could, but that's not exactly the nicest thing to say to someone. But uh, I
I
mean,
mean,
like,
I'm sure you've heard it a bunch of
yes, I
times.
have, I have. I mean, like, certainly I could, I could, if someone wanted to, I'd be like, sure, I'll help you learn. But I don't know that I would tell someone who was totally disinterested to demand that they learn to
Yeah.
code.
But that's how we've kind of done it is we look at which fields are going
We're
to need more
emerging.
people, and try to make people go over there and do that work instead. Sometimes that works, sometimes that doesn't, but um, you know I think that we have enough people to do the jobs that we need to do, and still you know get on the path to winding this down, so that you know we don't have jobs in the way we have them today forever. Do you have anything else you want to say, or I wrote kind of
Oh,
a
go
little
ahead.
bit that I was going to end with, but if
Sure,
you
I'm interested in your conclusion.
okay, well, hopefully this sounds okay. And hopefully, now that I said I'm reading it, it's not too obviously ridiculous. All right. There are endless things we can do.
Oh, your volume just your
Wow.
volume just fell through the floor.
Okay. So that app's not going to work. I'm just going to read it off of here instead. Am I okay now?
No.
Uh-oh. I will close this program. Is that better?
Mm, keep talk again.
Okay. You hear
Uh,
me?
yes.
Is it okay now?
Yeah, your volume's back.
Okay.
Sort of.
All right. Well, I'm going to look for a different teleprompter solution.
So I wonder why it did that.
It was trying to listen to me, so it knew when to move the cursor.
Okay, so it grabbed exclusivity.
Yeah. Sorry. All right. So there are endless things we can do, dream, and create that are not easy to make money from. But every extra hour you get to spend with your family and friends doing or creating the things you wished you had time for is invaluable. If you're already doing something you love and want to do, that's great, and the world probably needs you doing it. If you feel like a cog in a machine that's built to waste your life, or if you struggle to face the fact that many of our jobs only exist to funnel money to the wealthy or to allow them to play games with that money, I hope this will help you begin to change your perspective on work. I hope you will have conversations like this with people you know, and I hope you will think about what you truly want to do with your life and help to make it possible for all of us to shift the balance of our lives into our own hands. I didn't read that very well. My eyes are a little blurry right now,
Okay.
and I got this Invisalign thing going on, so that's why I sound weirder than usual.
All right. Well,
But that's a problem I have to deal with for the next 16 months or something like that.
wow.
Yeah.
So it is largely about shifting the concepts of the way that people see work in our culture.
Yeah.
And that is the tectonics underneath everything. Because without changing that, very little is to actually going to be able to adjust.
Yeah.
So I can see that like definitely uh, um, being a part of the cell, so to speak. Uh,
And I'm not exactly trying to sell things to people. I want people to start having conversations like
yep.
this, and think about, what we really need to do, what we want to do, how we can make our lives better, and, maintain the things that are important to us, but, you know, give ourselves a lot more time to do the other things that we would rather be doing
Yeah,
than,
rather than working
yeah.
for what? Like,
Yeah,
what are you working towards, and what are you working for, and what would you rather be doing with your
exactly.
life?
So if anyone is watching this and has made it all the way through, I hope you'll consider those things, talk to other people, talk to us. I'm happy to come on here any day you want and have the same kind of conversation. And, you know, if not, I will, try to reach you again soon.
Yep, and me and the supernova behind you, we'll see you later. Sounds like me.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.